Hi there.
Hi there. All right, now the mayor's there. Sorry about that. I think there were some lines crossed as to who was starting this, but we've
okay.
Everybody there? Or I don't know who else is supposed to be here.
We have a few more that are supposed to be here, so I imagine it'll take a few minutes to get people to come in. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Great. Hey, Alan, good to see you.
Is this everyone? I just want to make sure before I leave it.
It is not.
Okay.
Let's see. Tim Delante is going to join us. There's John Barr. Where's Kara Boland is coming.
Yeah.
Is Lisa from Lark?
Yes, that's me.
Yes, okay. So we have Lisa, Rebecca, and 3 more. I don't know who the other 3 are.
Hi, I'm John Barr.
Hi, John Barr.
Hi, John.
Nice to
Hi,
see you.
Jerry. How are you?
Hi, this is Kara Boland calling in. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Good. And Tim Delante is there.
I'm here. Hello, Mayor.
Good. Hi, Tim.
I do think, looking at the email, I do think this is everyone that is expected.
Awesome. All
I
right.
think so too.
Alrighty. I will leave you.
Do you want, Jen, do you want me to call you when we're done?
That'd be
Okay,
great.
I will
Thanks,
do
guys.
that. We had somebody else who was supposed to be taking care of this today and didn't. So Jen is always at the ready to give us a hand when we need it. So Fran, you're the one who put the agenda out. And so I think you might be a good one to, let's start with some introductions and we can just go across and yell out who we are. I'm Jerry Welch, Mayor.
I'm Laura. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Okay, I'm Tim Delante. We own Zoe's Attic. I'm president of the Trade Association, and I serve on the BDC and the Taxation Board for Webster.
I am Laura Arnold. I'm in my 3rd year as a city council member, and this, well, I guess in 2020, I became the council liaison to the BDC.
I'm Rebecca Now, and I am with the Webster Grove Shrewsbury Rock Hill Area Chamber of Commerce and on the BDC.
And I am Kara Boland. I am on the Business Development Commission as an at-large member.
Alan, Lisa, John.
And my name is John Barr. I own the Frisco Bar Room, and my wife and I own the Annex in Old Orchard and Civil Alchemy. And I'm on the Old Orchard board, have been for a couple years.
Great.
I'm Lisa Dolan, and I own Lark Skin Co.
Alan, we can't hear you. So in the meantime, Fran, can you talk a little bit, introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Fran Sudicum. I support all the 4 business-related commissions, Old Orchard, Old Webster, Crossroads, and the Business Development Commission. I also support the Old Webster Trade Association. I've been working with them since 2007. Joanne asked me to put together an overview, kind of a background, just to kind of who's who and what we've done in the past and what's in place now. And that's the handout that I sent you. And it's broken down, and I want to say this is all focused on commercial business. We're not going to talk about home businesses at all on any of this information. The handout is basically some of the things we've done in the past and what we have going on now. And the things in the past are, these are all examples of in-person activities, basically, because even this survey had an in-person component. It wasn't just with email. There were some other print things that we used to do in the past, but that's not reflected on this handout. And I could find things as far back as 2012. I may have missed a few. I wasn't with the commissions at that point. I was attending as part of the Old Webster Trade Association. That's how I was familiar with it. Does anybody have any questions? Just stop me anytime along the way. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. Any questions?
It's good to talk through some of this so that people get sort of up to date with what actually does go on.
Yeah, the business forums were actually in-person meetings that were held at the rec center. From what I could tell, we had one a year. The first one kind of like told the BDC story because the BDC was pretty new then. And then out of those other things came, one of the things that came was about opening a business. And that was a focus group of smaller business owners that were invited to attend that, which broke up another thing that they all build onto other things. We had a survey put together to find out what business owners wanted, what direction they thought the BDC should take, that sort of thing. And those in-person surveys were actually conducted by members of the Business Development Commission at that time. Chairman was John Spiceman at that time, who was a citizen at large. Then as a result of the surveys, it was determined that everybody needed to kind of get a good idea of what it meant to be in a taxing district, not to be in a taxing district, and what the options were, because the taxing districts are where the revenue comes for each of those businesses. Whereas somebody that's in Yorkshire Plaza is not in a taxing district. In fact, that has one private owner. So they do not contribute to any of the pooled activities that the BDC had started working on. After that meeting, and that was done with just commission members, the various 3 commissions. After that meeting, they decided that they wanted to have a wider meeting with the commission members, also the 3 commissions together, to talk about next steps, and got into strategies and goals of the BDC and that sort of thing. During the early period of that time, we did have a consultant. They were known as Insight Marketing that worked with us doing those business forums in the beginning. And I don't remember exactly when they stopped working with us, but somewhere along the line, they stopped working with us.
Let me also add that they not only did business forums, but they did a lot of communication. They tried to establish some of those email lists and constant contact lists. They did quite a bit of PR for the business districts.
Yeah, and I thought they were really good about helping us with the messaging at that time.
They were good.
Something we hadn't had before. Anybody else have a question, or I can move on?
I missed out on just that last little bit there. My computer froze.
That Jerry was talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we just had Insight Marketing.
We had a consulting firm that helped us for a while. They were pretty inexpensive. They were charging us about $1,000 a month, but they were eliminated from the budget.
Got it.
So then the next section is talking about in place things that we have, some of which we have talked on some of our BDC meetings. This is really focused on how we can reach out to the businesses. That was one of the main focuses of why this subcommittee was put together. That's my understanding. And I had talked about the email addresses. So this tells you how that is built. The email addresses are on the business license. Those are all uploaded to Constant Contact. Is there anybody that is not familiar with Constant Contact? Cool. I love not having to explain things. So while that's uploaded, I tag, and I do that. I tag everything so that if we recently had, when I sent messages out to some of you to be on this subcommittee, because of how I have that tagged, I was able to just send it out to Crossroad businesses or just send it out to Old Orchard businesses. We recently had another one where we were looking for just retail businesses. And that's based on the information that I'm pulling off of the business license. that is funneled to me from the front desk at City Hall. There's about 500 email addresses in that database. It does not necessarily represent every single commercial business because they don't always give us their email address. And each business could have more than one person. And it may not be the business owner. It just may be the person that was processing that business license. So it's not 100% of who we want to get a hold of sometimes. We do not have a separate email list in Constant Contact for property owners. However, we do know that many of our commercial business owners are also property owners. So we're touching them, but there's not a formal one just for property owners. Not saying that there couldn't be, there just isn't at this time. In addition to what is pulled off of the business license, the Old Webster Trade Association, when we do our membership form, we asked our members if we can share their email address with City Hall, and they say 100% of them say yes. So those are also uploaded to Constant Contact, and those are business owners and business managers and contact people. So that helps round it out. And Old Webster is the biggest one, so that helps. So that's email that the city has access to. Questions on that? The Constant Contact, yes.
So I know Constant Contact offers kind of some baseline analytics. Do you know what the open rate technically is when you send out those emails? Do you get pretty good engagement with the business owners?
Yeah, in fact, those 3 things that I just talked about, I pulled so I could give them to you today. And it was different based on where it was from. For example, Crossroads, I got a 60% open rate. Old Orchard, I got a 43% open rate. And then on the warehouse sale that we sent out to just retail, which didn't matter where you were, it was retail anywhere in the city. That was a 61% open rate. All those are higher than industry average by quite a bit, actually. Technically, what I see most of the time is about 40%. So it does depend on where you're going and what it's about.
What percentage of businesses do not give email addresses?
I do not have that information. I could pull it. It would have to be pulled, but I don't know what it is.
I mean, I'm just wondering, if we've got a phone number, that's another way to communicate with people if we need to go down that road.
The phone number will be on the business license.
Right. So
sometimes they just leave it blank on the email.
If it's a large number, I mean, just thinking of communicating.
Okay. So Constant Contact is a permission-based provider. So you do have to have the person's email permission to use it. Now, a good thing, I also pulled on all 3 of those that I just recently did. It'll give me a unsubscribe rate. So did we get a bunch of people because I sent that out unsubscribe, and it was 0 on all 3 of them. And that seems to be a trend lately. So that's up positive. Another form of communication we have is a private Facebook group. This was started by the Old Webster Trade Association and the Old Orchard Merchant and Business Association, which no longer is in existence, but that's where it started. And it was targeted initially for those 2 districts to be able to talk to each other. But they opened it up to any brick and mortar business in Webster Groves can be a part of that. So I gave you just an idea. There's currently 118 individual business people that are in that group, which represent 82 businesses, and the vast majority are in Old Webster. But there's a small percentage that's not in any business district. For example, Maypop is not an official taxing district, but they are in that Facebook group. It's not a super active group as far as not a lot of posting all the time, but when there is a post, most of the members will read it. They won't necessarily comment on it, but they will read it. That currently is administered by 2 members, business owners in the Old Webster district and myself. There was a Old Orchard person, but they're not there anymore. And any of you can join. We do have a few guests. For example, the Creative Entourage, which does the social marketing for Explore Webster Groves, is a guest on there. So if somebody posts about an event, they can see it and use that information. Then the rest of this is print and online social media, which is not as formal as the other things. But it's interesting when I ask people if they've seen the quarterly newsletter that came in their home called Inside Webster Groves. Unfortunately, in my experience, not very many people know what I'm talking about. I think it's got a lot of great information, but a lot of people don't know about it. It goes to citizens and at their home, and it goes to businesses. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, on where it goes to. Okay. The other thing that a lot of people see is the monthly Communication Connect that's published in the Webster Kirkwood Times. That is also coming out of the city. I don't know if people realize that that's the source, but that's where it is. Online and social media. The Friday page is relatively new. I kind of like it. It's online on the website, but you can subscribe to it and get in your inbox. So that's anybody. Then there's 2 pieces of information that have information about the businesses on the city website. One is the Explore Webster Groves landing page, is what I call it. And that's where you can supposed to find events, and where you can, it's just a database of all the businesses. In my opinion, it's kind of clunky and not user-friendly. You have to know what you're looking for. It's kind of like the dictionary. You have to know how to spell it in order to look it up, to figure out how to spell it. So if you know the name of the business you want information on, you can find it real easy. But if you don't really know, it's a little more difficult. There's also a restaurant guide in there that's in the Map Center portion of the city website, and it uses the GIS technology, which I looked up because I didn't know what the acronym, Geographic Information Systems Technology. And it's got a lot of information in there, but I don't think a lot of people know about it. The Explore Webster Groves Facebook page is extremely active. We have over 10,000 followers the last time I looked. It's administered by Creative Entourage. So we are paying them to administer that. They curate it, they schedule it. They do a really good job, in my opinion. In addition to, and all that is what I call city run. In addition, the Old Webster and Old Orchard have Facebook pages and associated social media. Those were both started by the trade associations. Old Webster is still basically run by trade association. Since Old Orchard doesn't have one anymore, it kind of defaulted to the Old Orchard Commission, but no commission members are administrators on it. I administer it, and Mara Pear is the other person that's on it. And then me. Technically, in July, I was given the title of Communications Coordinator. And it was kind of an obvious thing because I'm supporting all of the business districts to begin with, as well as the trade associations. I'm already talking to the various business people. So it was an opportunity to share information back and forth and solicit information back and forth. So it's 2-pronged. I can be sharing information with just the commissions back and forth, or I can be sharing information with the business owners. The second page of be sure to stop me now, I'll just keep talking. The second page is kind of a who's who. I find, especially when we get in these kind of groups, you take a lot of time explaining who all these players are and what the terminology means and what they represent. So this is more information than you probably wanted to know. But now when you see that Yorkshire is not in a taxing district and they don't contribute to the fund that the BDC uses for social media, that sort of things, you understand what's going on. I also included the 3 organizations that are nonprofits: Old Webster, Old Orchard, and the Chamber. Questions? So now the work, right? Now why we're here. How do we answer the question that came up at the last trade association meeting where people were dying to, how do we pull ourselves together? There's so many new businesses that I didn't meet. You know, that forum, that first forum was in 2012. There's a whole lot of new businesses that weren't here then. Things don't look the same. And we haven't had one since 2018. Of course, you know, we have problems with doing in-person things now.
So I'd like just to ask this group, because I know not all of us were at the old Webster Trade Association. In your mind, what is the goal of this group? What are we trying to do? I mean, you showed up here for a reason, and I'm curious from your perspective what that reason is, because I think that frames what the action steps are.
I agree with that.
So I think people need to think about, share with us why you think you're here. I mean, the goal was for us to begin to pull the business community together, but let's hear more from the participants.
So I'll chime in. My perspective is that there are a lot of silos within the Webster Groves business community. And I think that uniting everyone under Webster Groves, which is, again, an umbrella that could be under many other umbrellas, would be really useful to me. And I live, you know, close to the Block, Olive and Oak, all of those important landmarks. It's still Webster Groves, whether it's Old Webster or Old Orchard. And I think by unifying those districts, we would have a much stronger business community, a better message to sell, and, you know, we'd be a more unified destination. And honestly, that's how the rest of the metropolitan region sees Webster anyway. So I don't see that there's a big advantage into kind of subdividing us into these smaller groups.
I feel, you know, within Webster, there's always going to be some of, you know, those of us that grew up here that it is different areas. But I think the biggest problem is that different areas don't talk to each other at all. You know, when we try and do the cookie walk that I know was started in Old Orchard, and then Old Webster joined in, and now Old Orchard, I don't even think does it anymore. There's just not, you know, we hold the majority of the events in Old Webster. But I think we need to figure out a way to include, especially Old Orchard, in with what we are doing in the different events that we do somehow. Because, you know, our conversations, you know, whether it's the trade or tax, you know, we're not looking out to include any other areas in our conversations. And I think that's where we want to go, is to somehow include with these different events the other areas, which might get some more buy-in from some of these businesses that have come in over the last 8 years, as Fran's talking about, and have us as much more of a group. So how do we include, I mean, you know, without having a trade for any of these other places, it's kind of hard for us to reach out to the different areas, you know, to even have a conversation. So I think that's what I'm looking at here is, you know, what are the points of communications? How do we get people, who do we talk to that would want to? I know, John, you're very involved with things, and I'm sure you'd be a good contact down there to work with and get some combo things going. But that's my thought on it. I don't think we know where to go exactly. And I don't think the other districts are necessarily looking at it like that exactly, because they're just doing their own thing. But I think we'd like to invite the other districts to get involved with what we're doing, so it's done as Webster, not just Old Webster.
I think that from my experience on the Old Orchard Business District group, everyone on our end has always wanted to see how much we could tie more of the Old Webster events in with the Old Orchard events. I haven't been on long enough to be able to say too much. I know from Novel Neighbor, she's tried to kind of make some connections between and get us involved when Old Webster is doing something. I think that theoretically everyone from Old Orchard would like to be, knowing more about what Old Webster events are and how do we link those two districts, and then how do we get all the businesses in our district involved in that? And how do we get all the businesses in Old Webster involved in it? I mean, sometimes even when we do events in our district, getting all the businesses on board is a challenge, right? So to get all the businesses just to do something from our district down in Old Webster when they won't even join our own district events. Maybe if there was a little bit more of an overall Webster group, they would feel like it was more impactful that they were being a part of. But I know that we're all theoretically, I don't know what that means really, like in practice, but I mean, if Old Orchard started to celebrate the Christmas tree lighting, all right, it's a Christmas tree lighting, is that down at our end? Right? Like we've talked in our meetings for several years now, like, why isn't the Christmas tree lighting and what does Old Webster do on their end for Christmas?
Open house.
Right. Like, why aren't those two events the same? Why aren't we drawing people from over the whole metro region instead of competing against each other's districts? Why aren't we like saying, don't go to Kirkwood this weekend, come to Webster? It doesn't matter if it's Old Orchard or if it's Old Webster or if it's, whatever the other district's called. Come to at least just Webster. We're all celebrating having a big Christmas nostalgia type event. I think that each year we've talked about wanting that, and I felt like maybe we couldn't coordinate it or people didn't want to coordinate. I don't really know. And, sometimes everybody's so involved in their own businesses to put so much effort into trying to make that connection is, it's already challenging enough just getting your own little event going. So I don't know, maybe Fran, you could add a little bit more to that. Like, I feel like everybody on our end has always kind of felt like, how do we get on board? Let's get in with that event. Let's do it citywide. Let's not just do it in one district. We're one big city, not three little cities,
I think what the missing piece is what Tim said. Without the Old Orchard Merchant and Business Association being gone, the connection to have that discussion and have somebody put the work in is not there. In principle, everybody agrees, but you have to have someone that's organizing it and putting in some time. And like you said, you have trouble taking care of events in your own business. And now you're asking me to donate some of my time to work with a bunch of other people. And it's all volunteer. Right. But that's been, from my view, the biggest roadblock. When something's going on in Old Webster, I don't have a good avenue to let the businesses in Old Orchard know about it unless I'm authorized to do so. I just don't take it upon myself to insert myself into sending information, because you can ask the Old Webster Trade Association members, which I do control. They get a lot of emails from me. They get a lot of visits from me.
But you see, this is why we're here today. We're here today because we're talking about pulling things together. And that really is the charge of the Business Development Commission. That's why that commission was created. And in the early days of the commission, you had the forums, you had insight marketing. There was an attempt to pull everyone together. And I'm watching the Crossroads people, because the more we talk about Old Webster and Old Orchard pulling together, I see Alan Naring sitting there going, what about us in Crossroads? Or what about Yorkshire? Or what about Maypop? And that's why we're here today, is to talk about how we begin to pull everybody together.
So I wonder if Webster is using its existing resources as incentives to pull some of these groups together. Because I would say in the last 5 years, when, you know, I've been paying more attention, there's been some really, really strong brands. I mean, the Civil Alchemy, Frisco Bar Room included, pop up in each of the business districts, whether that's online, more like Zoe's Attic, or on social media. I know Lark is really good at that. Are we doing any sort of like incentivizing for activity within these groups? I mean, are they getting passes to the pool or free pavilion rentals or anything like that that we could offer to kind of engage them in? And then once we've got the hook, really get them into expecting these kind of routine communications, events, all of that good stuff?
So Kara, I'm not sure I quite understand. So what are we incentivizing them to do? Turn over communication information, show up at meetings?
So I think just participate, show up in meetings, respond to emails, be a part of the kind of civic group for Webster businesses. I mean, I think A, they get some sort of little goodie bag or whatever it is. B, they also are using the facilities at Webster, so that might link them a little bit more to the community. I mean, maybe there's a business day at the pool before it opens, something like that. That's easy, doesn't cost a lot, and gets them together, which I know right now is the overall challenge for everybody. But I think by having some of these business owners talk amongst themselves, understand that other of the major players are participating in this is going to help. When we were in the Business Development Commission, I suggested maybe some sort of mentorship program, even with existing business owners who are engaged, who understand how this system works, and who can kind of sell it as, you know, it's a benefit. It's not a lot of work. It helps my business XYZ. Because it seems to me that before we get anything really off the ground, engagement's going to be our biggest struggle. So I would probably try to tackle that first.
And is the vehicle to do this getting more people onto the Special Business District Advisory Commissions or onto the Business Development Commission, the BDC? Because right now we can barely get people onto our Old Orchard Business District Commission and keep them on there. And I don't really know, I guess, enough to know about what their power is to do versus what the BDC's is, right? Like, it seems like, I'm guessing there's some overlap at all of our business district advisory commissions. Fran, you can correct me again if I'm wrong. I feel like we talk about a lot of these things that I kind of think are the events that, you know, I don't know, at least from my perspective, the events that could help bring more people into the district and maybe really into the city, right? So not just the district, right? Get all 3 districts involved. Everyone's a part of we have a Webster Christmas, you know, it's the Norman Rockwell Webster Christmas, right? Or like way that we're all, and everyone around St. Louis comes to the area, and they're not just riding horses down in Old Webster, they're singing Christmas carols by the Christmas tree in, what's that park called? Gazebo Park. So, but I don't know if we talk about these things a bit in the Business District Commission meetings. Are these things that we need to get onto the BDC and get more people involved in the BDC? And would the BDC then begin to head these things up? Say like, okay, we're going to help create a new event and we're going to, or do the business district advisory commissions just need liaisons between them more than just Fran? And I know at time, Fran, who's some people from our commission from the Old Orchard have gone down and sat in on Old Webster, right? To try to liaison the two groups together to try to see if we can team up more.
Holland was the last one that did that.
And is that needed more? Or do we really need a bunch of people on this actually BDC? Or do we just need the two commissions talking more?
Three commissions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Three.
So that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
And by definition, the BDC includes somebody from each of the three taxing districts as well as at-large members. So in theory, there's some infrastructure there already.
To use that as the vehicle versus having like liaison go-betweens.
I know one of the open slots on the BDC is, in fact, the only open slot on the BDC is a rep from Old Orchard. But the Old Orchard Commission has 3 vacancies itself.
Yeah.
So you see the quandary. From what I have seen in the past, when we had there was 2 meetings where all the commission members from the 3 business districts were invited to attend. And it wasn't 100%, but it was more than 50%. And the discussions that took place in those meetings were one of the most beneficial that I had seen. And some of those people had never even met each other before, didn't know about each other's businesses. But then we didn't continue that. We didn't continue that connection. And I think that was very detrimental. Because once you get somebody to come to something and they've given you their time, but then we don't follow through, they're not going to give me time again the next time.
Right.
Was there more than, when did that happen, Fran?
That was 2017.
Okay, so I remember I was not on the BDC at that point, but I attended that meeting.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I remember that. And I do feel that that was a productive meeting to get some people there. I think that might be a good starting point there. I don't know if it's quarterly or it might need to be, but quarterly get some buy-in from not just the taxation districts, but from the just different businesses to pull in, and maybe, you know, if you get the people to come, there might be some excitement there to get things rolling together.
Well, and when a business is started, I mean, what's the outreach to try and fill these positions? Are we making visits and explaining what the commissions do and what the benefit would be?
We did that when the BDC started. There were a couple of folks on the BDC. We used to get some flowers and put them in a mug and go visit and welcome people. And it was kind of fun. It was a fun thing to do, but that got discontinued too. So Lisa and Alan has disappeared from us. Is there something that you want to say or need to say for Crossroads?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm totally new here. I've only owned a business in Webster for like 2.5 years. But yeah, I feel like, you know, a lot of times the Crossroads, and granted, we only have, I think, 2 retail stores right now, but we do kind of get forgotten about, and we see all these other events going on and we're like, oh, we would love to be a part of that. But again, for me, I think just being new, I didn't even know, you know, who to connect with or who to reach out with, or who to talk to and even see, you know, what was going on and how we could be a part of it. So I think just having, I mean, being a part of something like this, but even the Facebook group, to me, I was like, oh, that would be great if I could just even connect with other business owners, you know, about events and things that are going on throughout Webster, as opposed to just, you know, in the Crossroads.
And maybe Alan wants to say something too from the Crossroads. You know, the year Alan did you did that plank tree was pretty cool, and was another example of participating by another group in a holiday event.
Right. Yeah, I think everything everybody's saying is valid here. I think what happens is, you know, we're all fighting to try to keep our businesses alive. There's something always hitting us to some degree. And with that, I mean, this is the first time really that I've even talked to Lisa, and she's next door. I mean, to be honest, I mean, that's the reality of what's happening. When you see the Facebook, you know, Fran, when you talked about the Facebook, 3% of Crossroads is on that Facebook page. That is our reality in our district. The fact that the other two districts don't even know the name of ours is the reality. So, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just saying this is the reality. If we're not educating the businesses to all kind of know what we offer, we're probably not going to be able to be successful with the community, because we can grow as a group by just understanding what each business can bring to other businesses, in my opinion. And then once we get that, a good foundation for that, we can then start ripple affecting and providing more of a community-based thing. There was, and Mayor, like you said, I mean, I tried back in 2014 with that pallet. I mean, it was simply, we had a bunch of pallets. I think we got them from Schnucks, and we disassembled them. We paid somebody to kind of erect that. We talked to the city to allow us to do it on the park. And it was an amazing kind of fun thing because it was unexpected and people talked about it. And that's what we need to kind of, you know, continue to do. I will say from my standpoint, the one thing that I think out of all events that I personally love is the Santa's on the Run. I love that event. I think it's fun. I like just seeing how it kind of seems to be elevating. But what I like about it is it's actually, you start in a business district and you're running through the community versus telling the community come to the business district. So it's kind of an interesting play on things, but anyway, I'll shut up.
Hey, thanks for the shout out for Santa's on the Loose.
Yeah, I love it.
I appreciate that. I had no idea. But sometimes this last year, we didn't do it starting in a business district. And originally, we wanted to go from Old Orchard to Old Webster. And that was extremely difficult because you had to transport the runners back, and that wouldn't upscale very easily. So I also got a lot of pushback from Old Orchard merchants that felt like we were taking up their parking places and disrupting Starbucks. So this year we didn't do it in a business district. And I got to tell you, the residents along the race were so supportive. I'm still blown away how supportive and welcoming Webster Grove's residents were to all those runners. And to me, that brings people into the city. So that would be good. But on another point, I wanted to say, you know, it's not just restaurant and retail in two different districts. And it almost seems to me that that would be easily solved because they're event driven and they do a great job at Old Webster Trade, bringing people into Old Webster. And why couldn't you just add retail and restaurant from Old Orchard to your Webster Trade Association meetings and do joint events, because you're planning them all year long. And those two districts are the ones that are heavily retail restaurant. But there's a whole nother category of businesses, such as architects and professionals, CPAs, and Ross and Baruzzi, and all of the businesses in my business park, the Owen Ridge. These are the people that go shopping and dining at those restaurants for lunch and for dinner. I mean, they always get, I feel like, sometimes ignored. And I just wanted to propose, if the first step is engagement and learning about each other and what everybody does, we could have target like the Webster Arts Fair, which they're still planning to do first weekend in June. I was just talking to Jenny, the new executive director over at Webster Arts, and we could do an early morning coffee just for business owners on before hours, have a gift for them. Maybe there's a business trivia where we really understand. Do you know Ross and Baruzzi brings 92 employees to Old Webster that need lunch? Stuff like that.
I think that kind of lunch and learn model would be a really interesting thing, even over Zoom, if it's still during this time, where different representatives from different parts and talk about some of the challenges they have, you know, even make it a case study. What have you overcome? What's working for you in your area? Will it work in my area? The second point I'll make, my previous role was press secretary to Mayor Slay. And without fail, the most popular person in city government was the special events director. And she had an office of 2. And obviously the city had many, many events all year round, but her job was basically to make connections, go business to business, forge those relationships, and get people either involved or at least on board or not angry if there was, you know, an event that was going to shut off their city block during, you know, a busy weekend. And those events brought so much business, even if, you know, parking was restricted. And she did such a good job of forging and bringing things together that maybe that would be something to consider, you know, for a responsibility for one of the Webster employees to make sure that someone is actually on top of making connections and bringing people together under events, because that's such a important part of Webster too.
So we are running close to an hour now, even though we were a little late with the Zoom. We really should talk about next steps. What do we do? Where do we go with this? We've had a great discussion, lots of good ideas. What's our next step?
Well,
so I've been kind of making a list, if you all would like for me to refresh your memory of some of the action items that came up, because I think they fall into really 2 categories. One is recruitment and education of businesses, both new and existing. And then the second one is better coordination and inclusion and opportunities. And so, you know, things like we need someone who's empowered to facilitate that coordination across business districts. Think about how to incentivize participation and use that as a tool to recruit people. Should there be liaisons between business districts? Meetings with businesses to get to know each other, provide feedback and so forth, special outreach to new businesses, events for businesses like the Arts Fair Coffee that was mentioned, and then a clear statement that you cannot ignore non-retail and restaurant businesses.
So Laura, I hear what you're saying about recruitment seems to be the challenge that has always been a problem. And then once we do recruit, our goals to, as this group, say we have everybody just Solston wants to join and we have tons of us. Are we looking to plan and create more events that bring people into our districts so that they visually see, so that when we do a fall festival or something at Civil Alchemy, or maybe it's an Old Orchard event in the future at someday, that people are walking by Perspective Cabinetry and they're getting marketing because we're just bringing people in to see us. And adding to what Rebecca was saying, are we at the same time trying to, it made me think of some things like, there's a lot of businesses in this community that we don't know anything about. I'm sure there's all sorts, we're doing all sorts of sourcing at Civil Alchemy and making our own things. We've found some unique little businesses where people are making things outside in a little back outbuilding. And I'm wondering if there's a way, I think that's what Rebecca was maybe saying, is it's not just about retail and restaurant events, that there's all these other businesses there too. How do we connect those businesses? How do we connect Ross and Barzuni? Not that necessarily I need to do an architectural project of that scale, but how do we get them? If we do events, everybody gets seen. And that's one thing that the events do for us. People come into our district, they see Weber's, they see the Frisco for their first time, they walk in Civil Alchemy for their first time. They go down into Crossroads and they walk into the stores down there for their first time. But they also, how do we, that's what events do for us. But how do we like find out and get all these other businesses seen besides an event, right? Is that kind of, are those the goals, events and getting businesses that aren't, how do we get them seen?
It seems to me that the goal is to drive business to Webster Groves. And, you know, Rebecca's got a really good point. The biggest tax-paying entity, the property tax-paying entity in this town is Owen Development, and yet very few people know that Mallinckrodt has its research center, that Israeli Chemical has its big food research center there. There's so much that goes on there. Ross and Barazini is an international engineering and architecture firm. I mean, they did the airport in Dubai, and you're right, there are folks here, you know, reaching out to them to eat. Another big taxpayer is Yorkshire Plaza, and that's filled with retail businesses, but because they're not part of a taxing district, we seem to not think about them. So how does the BDC pull all of these folks in together? And I don't know whether we should have a second meeting soon, formulate our ideas, or if you all have some action item as a second step.
I'd like, well, two things. First, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
It's very confusing to me because I don't know how to pull them in because there's no contacts anywhere. There's nothing, there's nobody anywhere that we can just call or that we know. So maybe coming up with a way that we can start contacting those businesses or whatever it is. But that's a very unique one. Secondly, I'd like to get us all together with representatives from all the different things like we did in 2017, as Fran talked about. I think that'd be a good thing, but I just don't know if over Zoom that's going to be as effective as that meeting was in 2017. I almost feel like we just got to wait this out just a little bit so we can be in person again to get the good conversations and stuff that we had going there. I don't know if an invite to Zoom is going to be as exciting to get some of the people that we need involved to jump on and really become part of it.
I think planning for around that first weekend in June for an in-person would be a great idea if we can tie it into the Webster Arts Festival. And I think we almost need a trivia game. And to send business, do you know there's a guy who does orthotics and prosthetics in Webster Groves? I bet you hardly anyone knows that. Where would you get upholstery done in Webster Groves? You know, these are like hidden businesses in all those little districts. If we had some sort of trivia game between business owners, maybe business owners could learn about the breadth of what's available besides food and retail and a massage. So that might be an idea.
Okay, next steps. Do you all want to meet together again and have this gel a little bit so that we can actually set a few things in place, determining whether or not we want to be more formal about pulling people from the various districts together, whether we want to have a meeting, you know, some sort of breakfast meeting in June. Do we want to get together and formalize something? This has been a good conversation, but would you be willing to do that?
Yes.
Laura and Fran, any comments?
Yeah, so I just looked on the calendar, and the BDC meets again on February 25th. And so maybe part of the path here, I know we have a number of BDC members, is to take what we've discussed here today, talk to the BDC, and then maybe recongregate this group when the BDC maybe has a little bit of an action plan so that people can help refine that or make suggestions for that, so that both groups aren't working on this independently of one another.
I think that's a good point, that this is not the BDC right here.
And it was also this is supposed to be a working group of the BDC.
BDC.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not the BDC, but it is a subcommittee. So
right.
Yeah.
Do we need more people to join the BDC also? Is that, Fran, were you saying that earlier, that we needed an Old Orchard representative?
Yes, the only opening on the BDC is a rep from Old Orchard.
And I think if I was going to be more available, of more use in this group, I should probably sit in on a BDC meeting. Of course, time is what makes us all say, okay, one more thing to my plate. But I think if I'm going to put efforts in towards this, it feels like I should be sitting through that so I know what's going on there, and which I'm happy to do. Fran, if you can get me invited into the Zoom meeting, I'm happy to sit back and listen and see what they got going on.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I think Tim can attest to how it has helped him with communication back and forth, because he is on Old Webster and the BDC. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's also able, because what he does is he will talk about at the Old Webster meeting what was talked about on the BDC. And he will also talk about it at the Trade Association meeting. So those are good connections we want to continue. So John, I will do that.
Hey, Fran,
right.
who from the Crossroads is on the BDC?
No one.
Okay, so why is there only one opening for Old Orchard? Is what I just heard.
They're supposed to be, it's an either or, one from Crossroads or Owen Ridge, or what's the other one?
I think you're saying the Cross needs
Old Orchard and Old Webster are separate, but then the third business district rep on BDC is supposed to be a person that's either from Old Orchard or from Yorkshire or the Owen development, and there's no one from those three organizations. So the slot is filled with, there's supposed to be 2 citizens at large, and I think we have 3.
And so, Alan, I think that was filled because that slot stayed open for so long.
I don't think it's ever been filled since the BDC was instituted. They couldn't get anybody to fill it.
So you want somebody from Owen Ridge?
No, not right now. We need someone from Crossroads and someone from Old Orchard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
those are the 2.
Yeah. And so that's what's hard. And I think that's why perhaps this group has been a valuable discussion, is because even though we don't have someone on Crossroads, we have someone here in this working group on Crossroads. And that's an important contribution, because also everyone on here is a business owner, and the BDC has a lot of citizens at large. So I think this is a very valuable group to put together to continue the discussion about how we can work together. It would be nice if we could find someone from Yorkshire. Robin, whose last name escapes me, who owns
McNabb.
Who owns the Green, is it the Green Goose?
Green Goose.
Was a member of BDC for a while, and she brought a really valuable connection to Yorkshire. And it would be useful if we could find someone from Yorkshire and maybe continue this discussion, because then we have Crossroads, Old Orchard, we have the groups here in this group that we need to figure out how we all work together without the commitment of being a full commission member.
I can talk to Digital Strike as well. I'm going to be in there the next couple of days and see. I mean, when they do anything, they do what they do right. And I don't think Wes would necessarily want to jump in and be part of it, but he might have one of his employees jump in and be part of it. And he would be right behind him. I mean, he's a very good guy. I'm sure a lot of you guys know him.
Chris was actually very interested in this subcommittee, but he said for the next 6 to 12 months, he is extremely busy and he was afraid he wouldn't be able to devote the time.
Well, and that
So
he
was very interested.
Well, and I could talk to him about sending somebody from the office, somebody else that could represent him, and he could get behind it as well too that way.
Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion that this group try to find somebody from Yorkshire. We have another person from Crossroads. Then we have the big groups together, and that we continue to have, that we continue to meet. We can report to the BDC that we have met, that there are some good ideas that have come forward, and we have all these business owners here. And we try to get together in a couple more weeks. We have a summer with a lot of activities and events coming that we might be able to help support each other with. You know, you can always start the holiday planning really needs to be started in the middle of the summer. You know, if we want Alan
That's too late. Waiting till the middle of summer is too late to do holiday planning.
It's too late to do holiday planning. You really have to do that very like July or so. You really need to get into it so that Alan can build his tree again for us. We'll give him a couple of months to do that, but that's an ideal time for all of us to think about working together too. And we need to think about that umbrella, that process. Who's responsible for some of this and how we get it done. So I'm going to recommend that we meet again in 2 or 3 weeks. That's my recommendation. Would you agree?
Works for me.
Works for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
That's great.
Yeah, and so you can talk to your other folks and try to figure out if we want to add somebody here, but then the next step ought to be some concrete actions to move forward. Okay?
Okay.
Thank
Fran,
you.
will you organize us? I'm being big boss here, but
Organize the next meeting. Is that what you're saying?
I'm being big boss because I started out with this group, and I want to see us get back together again and work together and see what we can do to support each other. And so that we go back to the very beginning when Kara talked about let's unify our districts, let's unify Webster Groves as a destination, let's unify ourselves under one umbrella. And that's really what we need to do, but that comes with coordination, it comes with money. And so we'll see where that is.
And
Laura,
what I'm hearing is, just to clarify, is our next meeting would be after the February BDC meeting, which is the 4th Thursday of the month.
Yes.
All right.
So we would meet in early March. I would suggest that.
Got it.
Got it?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Fran can do that, and we'll have to figure this out. Okay, you figure out how much money. Laura's here. You know, Laura's really good about figuring out how much money we need out of the budget. So you got Laura and me thinking about
if only it was unlimited, right?
You
That's
guys,
why we got to get the businesses going.
we need your help with the use tax.
Yes,
That's something else that's
absolutely.
going to come. We're going to talk to you all about helping us pass the use tax, because there is some extra money to help with a lot of these things. So we need that to happen. So it's called leveling the playing field. And as Governor Parsons said, get the dang thing passed.
Passed, yes.
Is that a quote?
Yes, it is.
It is. That's what he
Okay.
said.
It's a quote.
They're debating the Wayfair tax at the state level right now.
Exactly. They are, and I'll get you guys some stuff out so that you can do some online testimony and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're debating it now. There are a bunch of us on a call with Governor Parsons, and that's exactly what he said.
Oh, I saw the
This is a
Zoom
word.
call. I
Dang.
saw the snapshot of you next to Parson, and you look so serious, Jerry.
I was serious. I figured, boy, he kept calling me by name, and I thought, wow, he knows me. And then I realized it was right on there, from the Zoom. So, all right. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
And your good thinking. And we're going to make this work. We are. We're going to do something great here. Good. All right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll hear from
Have a
us.
great weekend, everybody.
You too.
Yeah.
Happy
Bye.
Valentine's Day. We love our businesses.